I stood alone at the altar, scanning the empty seats where my parents should have been. My once-in-a-lifetime wedding day, and they chose my brother's meaningless soccer game instead. They laughed when I begged them to come, saying Tyler needed them more. The wedding photos captured my heartbreak and went viral overnight. My in-laws were livid. Then came my dad's devastating phone call. "Phoenix, I had no idea what I was missing. But if your mother knew and kept it from me, we're done. Now my family is imploding, and I'm caught in the middle of a war I never wanted to start." Growing up in our suburban Connecticut home, I always knew where I stood in the family hierarchy. My father James was a successful investment banker who worked long hours and trusted my mother Linda to manage family affairs. My younger brother Tyler, 4 years my junior, was the undisputed golden child. From the moment he showed promise in sports at age 6, my mother poured everything into nurturing his potential. I was the reliable one, the responsible eldest who did well in school, stayed out of trouble, and rarely demanded attention. My achievements were acknowledged with quick congratulations before conversations inevitably shifted back to Tyler's latest accomplishments. I told myself this was normal, that all families had their dynamics. But deep down, I felt the sting of being secondary. When I graduated high school as valedictorian, my parents attended the ceremony but left immediately after my speech. Tyler had a regional championship game that same afternoon. My mother hugged me briefly, saying, "We're so proud, but we need to get Tyler to his game." This could be scouted by college recruiters. I watched them rush out while other families celebrated with their graduates. My college acceptance to Cornell University coincided with Tyler's middle school science fair. I received the news alone in my room and planned a small celebration dinner. That morning, my mother apologized. "Tyler needs us at the science fair tonight. His project might qualify for state. We can celebrate your college acceptance next weekend." The next weekend never came. 4 years later, my promotion to junior partner at my architectural firm happened the same week as Tyler's high school play. I invited my parents to dinner at a nice restaurant to share my news. 2 hours before our reservation, my father called. "Your mother says we can't miss Tyler's performance. He only has a small role, but you know how these things are. Can we reschedule?" I ate alone at the bar, congratulated by strangers who overheard me ordering champagne for one. These patterns continued like clockwork through my 20s, so consistent that I should have stopped hoping for change. But there's something in human nature that keeps that flicker of hope alive, especially when it comes to family. Maybe next time would be different. Maybe one day I'd matter just as much. Then I met Autumn at a client meeting. She was the interior designer assigned to collaborate with me on a luxury apartment complex. Smart, creative, and unexpectedly funny, she made our long planning sessions feel like adventures. After our third meeting, I asked her to coffee. Coffee turned into dinner, dinner into weekends, and before I knew it, we'd been together for 2 years. Autumn came from a tight-knit family in Vermont. The first time she took me home to meet them, I felt like I'd stepped into a movie. Her parents, Steve and Margaret, welcomed me with genuine warmth. Her sisters, Jessica and Ashley, asked thoughtful questions about my work and interests. They actually listened to my answers. When I mentioned my recent project winning a regional design award, the entire family raised their glasses in toast. The contrast to my own family experiences was jarring. "Your parents must be so proud of everything you've accomplished," Margaret said during that first dinner. I nodded and changed the subject. Later that night, Autumn found me on the porch swing, lost in thought. "You never talk much about your family," she said, sitting beside me. "Are you close with them?" I hesitated before answering. "We're traditional. My parents are very invested in my brother's athletic career. He has real talent." Autumn studied my face. "And what about their investment in you?" No one had ever asked me that question before. I didn't have a ready answer. Over the next year, Autumn witnessed my family's patterns firsthand. She attended family gatherings where conversations revolved around Tyler's scholarship offers and tournament victories. She saw my parents cancel plans with us last minute when Tyler needed them. She noticed how my mother, in particular, seemed to schedule Tyler's events to conflict with our important dates. "It's not normal, Phoenix," Autumn said after my parents missed her birthday dinner because Tyler had a scrimmage game. You deserve better than this. I defended them out of habit. They're just supporting Tyler's potential. Sports scholarships are competitive, and architectural awards aren't? You're nationally recognized in your field at 32. When was the last time they acknowledged that? She was right, but changing 32 years of family dynamics seemed impossible. I continued hoping for recognition while simultaneously bracing for disappointment. Then came the discovery that changed everything. While helping my parents move some boxes from their attic during spring cleaning, I found a collection of old family videos. Feeling nostalgic, I took them home to watch. Among footage of birthdays and holidays, I found something disturbing. A video from when I was 17 showed my mother in the kitchen on the phone. I could clearly hear her speaking to Tyler's middle school coach. Is there any way to move Tyler's game to the 23rd? Phoenix has some academic award thing on the 22nd, and it would be so much more convenient if they didn't conflict. She paused, listening. Oh, the 23rd doesn't work for the other team? What about the 22nd at 4? Phoenix's event starts at 2, so we could make an appearance and then leave for Tyler's game. I sat stunned as the video continued. This wasn't a one-time occurrence. In the background of family gatherings, birthday parties, and holidays, my mother was constantly on the phone, deliberately scheduling Tyler's events to conflict with my milestones. The manipulation had been intentional all along. When Autumn found me staring blankly at the television hours later, I showed her the footage. Her face darkened with anger. Phoenix, this is emotional abuse, she said firmly. She's been systematically ensuring you're always second place. For the first time, I couldn't defend my mother's actions. The evidence was irrefutable, captured in her own words, and preserved for years without her knowledge. Something broke inside me that day, the persistent hope that things might change naturally. If change was coming, I would have to demand it. By our 3rd anniversary, I knew Autumn was the person I wanted to spend my life with. She had shown me what unconditional support felt like. She celebrated my victories, comforted me through setbacks, and never made me feel like I had to earn her attention. I planned my proposal carefully, designing a custom ring inspired by the architectural elements of the building where we first met. On a crisp October evening, I took her to the rooftop garden of that same building, now completed and illuminated against the twilight sky. Surrounded by the city lights and the structure we'd helped create together, I asked her to marry me. Yes, she said immediately, eyes shining with tears. 1,000 times yes. We called her parents first. Their joyous reaction echoed through the phone as they demanded details and insisted on celebrating as soon as possible. When we called my parents, my mother answered. That's nice, dear, she said after I shared our news. Tyler just got invited to a special training camp this weekend. College scouts will be there. We're so excited. I forced myself to continue. We'd like to have a small engagement dinner next Saturday. Would you and Dad be able to make it? Oh, I'm not sure. Let me check Tyler's schedule. In the background, I could hear my father asking who was calling. It's Phoenix, my mother said. He's engaged to Autumn. My father took the phone. Congratulations, son. That's wonderful news. Of course we'll be at the dinner. Just tell us when and where. I heard my mother protesting in the background, but for once, my father stood firm. Linda, our son is engaged. Whatever Tyler has going on, he can handle it without us for one night. That small act of support from my father gave me hope that perhaps things could change. Maybe my engagement would be important enough to shift the family dynamic. The engagement dinner at Autumn's parents' home was warm and festive. Her father, Steve, toasted our happiness with tears in his eyes. Her mother, Margaret, had prepared all my favorite foods after quietly asking Autumn what I enjoyed. Her sisters presented us with a scrapbook of our relationship, containing photos they'd collected from the beginning. I was overwhelmed by their thoughtfulness. My parents arrived 30 minutes late. My mother immediately mentioned the traffic they'd hit coming from Tyler's practice. My father, however, seemed genuinely happy to be there. He brought a good bottle of champagne and engaged Autumn's family in conversation. For brief moments, when my mother was distracted, I caught glimpses of the father I'd always wanted, interested, proud, and present. As wedding planning began, Autumn and I agreed on a September ceremony the following year. We selected a beautiful restored barn venue in the countryside between our hometowns. We checked with all family members about potential conflicts before placing our deposit. September 14th is completely clear, my mother confirmed when I called specifically to verify. Tyler's soccer season doesn't start until October that year. With the date secured, we threw ourselves into planning. Autumn's family was involved every step of the way. Her mother and sisters joined us for cake tastings and decor selections. Her father helped research photographers and bands. My parents remained largely uninvolved, despite my attempts to include them. 6 months before the wedding, I organized a special dinner to share our wedding details with my family. I reserved a private room at my father's favorite steakhouse and planned to walk them through the ceremony details, hoping to make them feel included. 3 hours before dinner, my mother called. "We can't make it tonight," she said. "Tyler has a practice session with his new private coach." "Mom, this dinner is about the wedding," I said, trying to keep frustration from my voice. "I've made reservations at Dad's favorite restaurant. Can Tyler's practice be rescheduled? This coach is very exclusive, Phoenix. He only had this one opening. Your brother's future depends on making the right connections." I took a deep breath. And my future is being built right now, too. This wedding is important to me. It's just dinner, Phoenix. We can talk about wedding stuff anytime. I went to their house the next day instead, bringing the information packets I'd prepared. My mother flitted in and out of the living room as I showed my father the venue photos and explained the timeline. "This is going to be a once-in-a-lifetime event," I emphasized, looking directly at both of them when my mother briefly sat down. "Having you both there means everything to me. I've never asked for much, but I'm asking for this. Please make sure you keep September 14th completely free." "Of course we'll be there, son," my father said, clapping my shoulder. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." My mother nodded absently, already checking her phone. The months passed in a blur of preparations. Autumn's family continued to be enthusiastically involved, while my parents remained distant. I told myself it didn't matter as long as they showed up on the day. 4 months before the wedding, I attended my cousin Grace's baby shower. While helping clean up afterward, I overheard a conversation that made my blood run cold. My mother was in the kitchen speaking to someone on the phone. "Coach Williams, thank you so much for considering this special request," she said warmly. "I know the regular season is over by then, but this exhibition game would mean so much to Tyler. September 14th would be perfect. The other parents are already on board." I stepped closer, unable to believe what I was hearing. "Yes, I understand it's unusual to schedule a game after the season ends," my mother continued. "But as the team's largest donor, we'd consider this a personal favor. Tyler needs this opportunity to showcase his skills before college recruitment begins in earnest." The coach must have agreed because my mother thanked him profusely before hanging up. I ducked out of sight as she turned around, my mind reeling. She was deliberately creating a conflict with my wedding day, despite knowing the date for months. On the drive home, I called my brother. Tyler answered on the first ring. "Hey bro, what's up?" "Tyler, do you have a soccer game scheduled for September 14th? I asked without preamble. He sounded confused. "September 14th? No, season's over by then." "Why? Are you sure? Nothing special being planned? No exhibition game?" "Not that I know of. Should there be?" Either Tyler was lying, or he didn't know yet. Given how our mother operated, I suspected the latter. When I told Autumn what I'd overheard, she was livid. "Phoenix, you need to confront her. This is crossing every line." I agreed, but decided to wait and gather more information first. I needed to be certain before making accusations that could damage our already fragile relationship. 2 days later, I had my confirmation. A teammate of Tyler's named Jason worked part-time at the coffee shop near my office. When I stopped in, he mentioned the special game being arranged. "Your mom is going all out for this one," Jason said as he prepared my order. "Coach says it's just an exhibition match, but she's treating it like the World Cup. September 14th, right? Aren't you getting married that day?" The last piece of the puzzle fell into place. My own mother was deliberately creating a conflict to ensure my parents would miss my wedding. And worse, she was lying to everyone about it, including my father. 1 week before the wedding, final details needed confirmation. Autumn and I had spent months planning every aspect of our day. Her parents had been invaluable, helping with vendor coordination and last-minute adjustments. My parents remained notably absent from the process. Still, I held on to hope that they would prioritize my wedding day. Despite overhearing my mother's machinations, I wanted to believe my father would insist on attending. I drove to their house on Saturday morning, armed with the final schedule and seating arrangements. My parents were having breakfast when I arrived. Tyler was home from college for the weekend, scrolling through his phone at the kitchen table. The scene looked deceptively normal, a family enjoying weekend breakfast together. "Phoenix! Good to see you," my father said, rising to greet me. "Wedding's coming up fast, isn't it? Coffee?" I accepted the cup and sat down, trying to calm my nerves. I brought the final schedule for next Saturday. The ceremony starts at 2, but family should arrive by noon for photos. My mother and father exchanged a look I'd seen countless times before. My stomach dropped even before they spoke. "About that," my mother began, her voice taking on the sympathetic tone that always preceded disappointment. "We should have mentioned this sooner, but Tyler has a very important game that day, a special championship match that could determine his college scholarship opportunities." I stared at her, unable to process the audacity of the lie. Tyler looked up briefly, then back at his phone, seemingly uncomfortable. "A championship game?" I repeated. "In September? Before the regular season starts?" My mother nodded confidently. "It's a special preseason tournament, very exclusive. Only the best players get invited." "That's not possible," I said flatly. "I confirmed with you months ago that September 14th was clear. I specifically chose that date because you said there were no conflicts." "Well, this opportunity came up unexpectedly," she replied, spreading jam on her toast with steady hands. "These things happen, Phoenix. I'm sure you understand how important this is for Tyler's future." I turned to my father, searching for an ally. "Dad, this is my wedding day, a once-in-a-lifetime event. I've been planning this for over a year." My father looked uncomfortable, glancing between my mother and me. "Son, I understand this is important to you, but this game could affect Tyler's entire future. Scouts from major universities will be there, and my wedding won't happen again," I countered, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "This is the day I commit to spending my life with someone I love. Don't you think that deserves your presence?" My mother laughed lightly, as if I were being dramatic. "Phoenix, it's just a party. We can see the photos and watch the video afterward. Tyler needs us physically present at his game. You're an adult. You don't need your parents hovering over you on your wedding day." Her dismissive tone struck me like a physical blow. 33 years of similar moments flashed through my mind. Achievements diminished, needs ignored, presents requested but denied. Always for Tyler. Always with the same excuse. He needed them more. "This isn't just any day," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "This is my wedding. I'm only going to have one. I'm begging you both to be there. Please don't miss this." "You'll have Autumn's family there," my mother said dismissively. "And all your friends. You'll hardly notice we're not there." "I'll notice," I said quietly. "I've noticed every time you've chosen Tyler over me. How could I not notice when you're absent from my wedding?" Tyler finally looked up from his phone, his expression uncomfortable. "Bro, it's not that big a deal. Mom and Dad have always come to your stuff. One missed event won't kill you." I turned to him, incredulous. "Always come to my stuff? Name one important event of mine they haven't missed or left early from in the past 10 years. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, unable to provide an example. I stood up, gathering the papers I'd brought. "The ceremony is at 2 o'clock. Family photos start at noon. I'm asking you one last time to be there. We can't miss Tyler's game," my mother said firmly. "I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but his future is at stake." "And what about my future? My happiness? Does that factor into your decisions at all?" My father at least had the decency to look ashamed, Phoenix, try to understand. This is complicated. No, Dad. It's actually very simple. You're choosing to miss your firstborn son's wedding for a soccer game. There's nothing complicated about that. I left their house with a heaviness in my chest that felt like concrete. In my car, I called Autumn, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. "They're not coming," I said when she answered. "They're choosing Tyler's game over our wedding." Autumn's response was immediate and fierce. "That's absolutely unacceptable. Did you tell them how important this is to you?" I begged them. Autumn, I literally used the words, "once-in-a-lifetime event," and "I'm begging you." My mother laughed and said Tyler's game was more important. There was silence on the line for a moment. "Phoenix, I love you, and I'm trying to be respectful of your family. But this crosses every line. Your mother is intentionally sabotaging your wedding day. She scheduled this game specifically to conflict with our date." "I know," I said quietly. "I heard her arranging it at my cousin's baby shower. And you still gave her the benefit of the doubt?" "Phoenix, this is emotional abuse. She's manipulating everyone. You, your father, even Tyler." I couldn't argue with her assessment. The evidence was too clear, too damning. "My parents want you to know their house is open to you anytime you need to get away," Autumn continued, her voice gentler now. "My dad says he'd be honored to stand in for your father in any way you need on our day." The contrast between her family and mine had never been more stark. One embraced me unconditionally. The other repeatedly rejected me for reasons I couldn't control. That evening I met with Jason, Tyler's teammate, at a local diner. I needed to confirm what I already suspected. "So this championship game on Saturday," I began after ordering coffee. "How important is it really?" Jason looked confused. "Championship? It's not a championship anything, man. It's a completely meaningless exhibition game against the alumni team. Half those guys are out of shape 30-year-olds who played in high school. No scouts, no trophies, nothing at stake." My mother told my father it was a critical preseason tournament with college scouts attending. Jason snorted. "Dude, no offense, but your mom is full of it. She practically begged Coach to schedule this game. He thought it was weird since the season doesn't start for weeks, but she donated new equipment for the whole team, so he agreed. Everyone knows it's just for fun." I thanked him for his honesty and drove home in a daze, trying to process the depths of my mother's deception. Not only was she choosing to miss my wedding, but she'd manufactured a completely fictional reason to justify her absence, and she'd manipulated my father into complicity with her lies. That night I couldn't sleep. Beside me, Autumn breathed evenly, her hand resting protectively over mine even in sleep. I stared at the ceiling, confronting the painful truth I'd avoided for decades. My mother didn't want me to have my moment in the spotlight. She'd systematically ensured Tyler received all the family's attention, all the celebration, all the support, and she'd continue this pattern indefinitely if nothing changed. For the first time, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of this betrayal. The tears came silently at first, then in heaving sobs that woke Autumn. She held me without question, stroking my hair as I finally mourned the parental relationship I'd never had and had finally stopped hoping for. "I don't want to start our marriage with this hanging over us," I said when I could speak again, "but I don't know how to let it go." "You don't have to let it go," Autumn said firmly, "but you can decide not to let it define our day. Your family's choices reflect on them, not on you, not on us, and not on our future together." I nodded, drawing strength from her certainty. "Then, let's have the most beautiful wedding possible, surrounded by people who truly want to be there." "That's my Phoenix," she said, kissing me gently, rising from the ashes every time. Our wedding day dawned clear and perfect, one of those crisp September days that hints at fall while holding on to summer's warmth. I woke early in the suite at the historic hotel adjacent to our venue, momentarily disoriented before remembering. Today I would marry Autumn. Despite my resolution to focus on joy, my first thought was of my parents. Would they have a last-minute change of heart? Would my father realize what he was missing and choose to come alone? I checked my phone. No messages, no missed calls, just congratulatory texts from friends arriving for the ceremony. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. I opened it to find Steve, Autumn's father, holding a tray with coffee and breakfast. "Thought you might need this," he said, entering with a warm smile. "Big day ahead." I thanked him, genuinely touched by the gesture. "I know I'm not your father," Steve said, pouring coffee for both of us, "but I want you to know I'm here for whatever you need today. Autumn told us about your parents' decision. I'm sorry, son." The simple acknowledgement of my pain, without judgment or platitudes, broke something open inside me. I kept hoping they'd change their minds. Steve nodded, understanding in his eyes. "That's natural. But today isn't about who isn't here. It's about who is. And there's a room full of people down the hall getting ready to celebrate you and my daughter." "Thank you," I said, meaning it for more than just the coffee or his words, for everything. "That's what family does," he replied simply. "Now eat something. Grooms need their strength too." The morning passed in a blur of activity. My best friend Nathan arrived with the other groomsmen. The photographer captured candid moments of us getting ready. Autumn's family moved seamlessly between her preparation room and mine, bringing messages, forgotten items, and steady encouragement. At noon we gathered for family photos. Autumn was sequestered in her room, maintaining the tradition that we wouldn't see each other before the ceremony. Her parents, sisters, and extended family arranged themselves around me in various combinations. No one mentioned the empty spaces where my parents should have been, but I felt their absence like phantom limbs. When it was time for the ceremony, I took my place at the altar, scanning the gathering crowd one last time. The seats reserved for my parents remained conspicuously empty. Steve noticed my gaze and stepped forward. "I'd be honored to stand with you until Autumn arrives," he said quietly. I nodded gratefully, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. He took his place beside me, a steadying presence as the music began and guests settled into their seats. The ceremony itself was everything we'd planned, personal, meaningful, and focused on our commitment to each other. When Autumn appeared at the end of the aisle, radiant in her gown, the sight of her drove all other thoughts from my mind. This was what mattered, the life we were choosing to build together. We exchanged vows we'd written ourselves. I promised to create a home where she would always feel valued and celebrated. She promised to stand with me through whatever challenges life brought. Neither of us mentioned family directly, but the subtext was clear to those who knew our story. As we were pronounced husband and wife, our guests erupted in applause. I kissed my new wife, overwhelmed with joy and love despite the day's undercurrent of loss. Our photographer, Thomas, captured the moment perfectly. Autumn and me in our first embrace as a married couple, surrounded by friends and her family, with 2 empty seats visible in the background. The reception followed in the beautifully decorated barn. Fairy lights twinkled overhead, and long tables were adorned with wildflowers and candles. The meal, music, and dancing created the celebration we'd envisioned. If guests noticed my parents' absence, they were kind enough not to mention it. During the father-daughter dance, Steve held Autumn tenderly, both of them teary-eyed. When the song ended, Steve approached me. "Your turn, son," he said, gesturing to where Autumn stood waiting. "There's no mother-son dance on the program," I said, confused. "I know, but you should have this moment too." He guided me to the dance floor where Margaret, Autumn's mother, waited with a warm smile. "May I have this dance?" she asked simply. I took her hand, fighting back tears as she stepped into the role my mother had abandoned. As we moved around the floor, Margaret spoke quietly. "The day Jessica was born, I made a promise that I would celebrate every important moment in her life. I made the same promise when Ashley arrived, and again when Autumn came into our world. Today, I'm making that promise to you too, Phoenix. Your joy matters to us." I couldn't respond, but she seemed to understand. We finished the dance in comfortable silence, and when it ended, she hugged me firmly. "Welcome to the family, son." The rest of the evening passed in a haze of happiness tinged with melancholy. By all objective measures, our wedding was perfect. Beautiful setting, delicious food, heartfelt speeches, and a dance floor that stayed packed until midnight. Yet the absence of my parents cast a shadow I couldn't completely outrun. Thomas, our photographer, approached me near the end of the night. "I've been capturing candid moments all day," he said, showing me his camera screen. "But there's one I think you should see now." The photo showed me at the altar just before the ceremony began. I was looking toward the entrance, my expression a complex mixture of hope, disappointment, and resignation as I registered my parents' empty seats. Steve stood supportively at my side, his hand on my shoulder. "It's a powerful image," Thomas said quietly. "It tells a story beyond just a wedding day." I nodded, unable to disagree. "Thank you for capturing the truth." 2 days later, as Autumn and I prepared to leave for our honeymoon, Thomas sent us a preliminary collection of photos. They were stunning, joyful, intimate, and beautifully composed. Before switching off my phone for our trip, I impulsively posted one to my social media accounts. The image of me at the altar, waiting and realizing my parents weren't coming, juxtaposed with a second photo of Autumn and me surrounded by her loving family during the reception. I captioned it simply, "Family is who shows up. Thank you to those who did." I thought nothing more of it as we flew to our honeymoon destination, deliberately disconnecting from phones and internet for a week of uninterrupted time together. Our honeymoon was blissful, a perfect beginning to our married life, unmarred by family drama or painful absences. For 7 days, we existed in our own world of beaches, adventures, and intimate conversations about our future. When we returned and switched our phones back on, my peaceful bubble immediately shattered. My social media post had gone viral, shared hundreds of thousands of times with supportive comments flooding in. News outlets had picked up the story. Groom's parents skip wedding for brother's soccer game. My private family drama had become public discourse. Dozens of missed calls and messages awaited me, from friends offering support, from estranged family members expressing shock, and finally, from my father. His voicemail sounded desperate. "Phoenix, call me back as soon as you get this. Things are falling apart here. Your mother and I, just call me, please." Autumn watched me listen to the messages, concern etched on her face. "What do you want to do?" I took a deep breath. "I need to understand what's happening before I respond to anyone." We scrolled through news articles together. The story had clearly struck a nerve, with thousands sharing similar experiences of family favoritism and parental absence. In the comments, people speculated about my family dynamics, some accurately identifying patterns of narcissistic parenting in my mother's behavior. Most concerningly, someone had identified my parents and our hometown. Local reporters had approached them for comment. According to one article, my mother had claimed she thought the wedding was just an informal party and would have attended had she understood its importance. My father was quoted as being unaware of the significance of the event. The final blow came from an unexpected source. Autumn's father had apparently been approached by reporters and had given a statement. "As Phoenix's new father-in-law, I'm outraged by his parents' choice to miss this important day." Every parent receives invitations to countless events in their children's lives. The critical skill is discerning which ones are truly once-in-a-lifetime moments. Phoenix clearly communicated that his wedding was such an occasion. His parents' decision reflects on them, not on him. The public nature of Steve's defense touched me deeply while simultaneously escalating the situation beyond anything I'd imagined. This was no longer a private family matter but a public referendum on my parents' choices. My phone rang again. This time it was Tyler. "Dude, what the hell?" he demanded when I answered. "Why would you post that and humiliate our parents?" "I didn't intend for it to go viral," I said honestly. "I was just sharing my wedding photos, with a caption designed to make Mom and Dad look terrible. Do you have any idea what's happening here? Mom's crying constantly. Dad's barely speaking to her. Our phone is ringing off the hook with relatives asking what kind of parents miss their son's wedding for a soccer game." "A fake soccer game," I corrected quietly. "An exhibition match with no significance that Mom deliberately scheduled to conflict with my wedding." There was silence on the line. Then, "What are you talking about? Ask Jason, or any of your teammates." "Mom manipulated the coach into scheduling that game specifically on my wedding day. There were no scouts, no championship, nothing at stake." "That can't be true," Tyler said, but his voice lacked conviction. "It is true. And deep down, I think you know it. Another silence. Mom and Dad are fighting like I've never seen before. Dad keeps saying he didn't know, that Mom told him it was just some casual courthouse thing, not a real wedding. This new information hit me like a physical blow. She lied to him about what it was? Are you serious? Apparently. Look, Phoenix, I don't know what the truth is anymore, but our family is imploding. Dad moved out last night after finding your formal wedding invitation hidden in Mom's desk. He's saying if she deliberately kept him from your wedding, they're done. I sat down heavily, trying to process this development. My mother's deception went deeper than I'd imagined. She hadn't just scheduled a conflict, she'd actively misrepresented my wedding to my father to ensure his absence as well. Phoenix? Are you still there? Tyler asked. I'm here, I replied. I need time to think. Well, think fast, my brother said bitterly. Because things are falling apart, and you started it. No, Tyler. I didn't start this. Mom's been orchestrating this dynamic our entire lives. The only difference is now other people can see it too. After hanging up, I turned to Autumn, who had heard everything. My father didn't know, I said numbly. She lied to him about what the wedding was. Autumn's expression hardened. That's beyond manipulation. That's cruel, to both you and your father. My phone rang again. This time it was my father himself. I took a deep breath before answering. Dad? Phoenix. His voice sounded rough, as though he'd been crying. We need to talk. Can I come over? 20 minutes later, my father was sitting in our living room, looking like he'd aged a decade since I'd last seen him. His normally neat appearance was disheveled, unshaven, wearing wrinkled clothes that suggested he'd slept in them. I didn't know, were his first words after declining coffee. I swear to you, Phoenix, I had no idea what I was missing. What did Mom tell you about the wedding? I asked quietly. He ran a hand through his graying hair. She said you and Autumn were having a small civil ceremony at the courthouse with just a few friends, that there would be a proper reception later we could attend. He looked up, anguish in his eyes. She said you understood we needed to be at Tyler's game and were fine with it. The calculated nature of my mother's lies stunned me into momentary silence. When I saw those photos, my father continued, his voice breaking. The venue, Autumn in her wedding gown, you waiting at the altar. It was obviously a formal wedding, a beautiful one I should have been at. I sent formal invitations months ago, I said. I brought schedules to the house. I specifically told both of you it was a once-in-a-lifetime event. My father nodded miserably. I know that now. When the story broke, I searched the house and found the invitation hidden in your mother's desk drawer. She never showed it to me. And when you visited, she always made sure I was busy or distracted when you discussed wedding details. How could you not know, Dad? I literally begged you both not to miss it. I thought you were being dramatic about a courthouse appointment, he said, shame evident in his voice. Your mother is very convincing, Phoenix. She's been managing our family schedule for 30 years. I trusted her completely. A heavy silence fell between us. Autumn had tactfully made herself scarce, giving us privacy for this painful conversation. What happened when you found the invitation? I finally asked. My father's face hardened. I confronted her, asked her directly if she knew what our son's wedding really was, and deliberately kept it from me. He swallowed hard. She denied it at first, said it was a misunderstanding. Then I showed her the invitation with the RSVP card she'd marked regretfully decline, and mailed back without my knowledge. What did she say then? She claimed she was protecting Tyler's future, that your wedding was one day, but his athletic career was his entire life. My father's hands clenched into fists. We've been arguing for days. I told her if she knowingly kept me from my firstborn son's wedding day, we're done. 35 years of marriage over, just like that. The magnitude of the situation washed over me. My viral post hadn't just exposed my mother's behavior. It had potentially ended my parents' marriage. Despite everything, that wasn't what I'd wanted. Dad, I never intended. This isn't your fault, he interrupted firmly. You shared your wedding photos. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is what those photos revealed. that your mother and I weren't there on the most important day of your life. That's on us, not you. My father stayed for nearly 2 hours. We talked more openly than we ever had before. He admitted that he'd allowed my mother to manage family affairs so completely that he'd lost sight of what was happening. He'd been so focused on his career and then on Tyler's potential that he'd failed to notice the systematic way I'd been sidelined. I should have paid more attention, he said, wiping tears from his eyes. I should have questioned why we never seemed to make it to your events, why your achievements were always mentioned in passing while we spent hours discussing Tyler's games. You were there sometimes, I said, remembering rare occasions when he'd shown up for me. Not enough, not nearly enough. He took a shaky breath. I don't know if you can forgive me, Phoenix. I wouldn't blame you if you couldn't. But I want you to know I'm truly sorry, and I'm going to do better if you'll give me the chance. After my father left, Autumn returned from her errand, sitting beside me on the couch. How was it? Painful, I admitted, but maybe necessary. He seems genuinely devastated about missing the wedding, and furious with Mom for deceiving him. What happens now? I don't know. He's staying at a hotel. Says he can't be in the same house as Mom right now. The next day brought another wave of family drama. My phone rang continuously, extended family members choosing sides, childhood friends expressing support, and even Tyler calling back with a markedly different tone. I talked to Jason, he said without preamble, and some of the other guys. They confirmed what you said about the game. It was completely meaningless. Just an exhibition match Mom arranged. I'm sorry, Tyler. I know this is hard for you too. He was quiet for a moment. All these years I thought I was special, that my talents were the reason Mom and Dad focused so much on me. Now I'm wondering if Mom just used me to make sure you never got the spotlight. The insight surprised me, showing more self-awareness than I'd given my brother credit for. It wasn't your fault, I said. We were both just playing the roles she assigned us. Later that day, my Aunt Carol called. My mother's sister had always been more perceptive than most about our family dynamics. I've been thinking about this since I saw your wedding photos, she said. And I need to tell you something. This pattern with your mother goes back much further than you know. She proceeded to share stories from their childhood, how my mother had always needed to be the center of attention, how she'd sabotaged her own sister's important moments whenever possible. When I got engaged, she announced her pregnancy with you at my engagement party. When I graduated college, she went into premature labor that mysteriously resolved once my ceremony was over. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because I should have said something years ago when I saw her doing the same thing to you. I recognized the signs, Phoenix. The way she'd schedule conflicts, the way she'd diminish your achievements while magnifying Tyler's. I just didn't want to interfere in your family dynamics. I wish you had, I said honestly. I know. I'm sorry. She paused. There's something else you should know. Your mother has been calling family members claiming you're exaggerating about the wedding. That it wasn't a real event, just a small gathering you blew out of proportion on social media for attention. My hands tightened around the phone. That's absolutely false. We had 150 guests. A full ceremony, professional photography and catering. I believe you, Aunt Carol assured me, and most of the family does too. But she's desperate to control the narrative now that everything's exposed. By the end of the week, our family had divided into factions. My father remained at his hotel, refusing to return home until my mother admitted to her deliberate deception. My mother continued to spin alternative versions of events to anyone who would listen. Tyler seemed caught in the middle, his certainty about his role in the family shaken for the first time. The most surprising development came when my cousin Grace, whose baby shower had been where I overheard my mother arranging the soccer game, reached out with a recording. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, she explained, but after you left so suddenly that day, I was concerned. I heard Aunt Linda on the phone in the kitchen and remembered you asking about a soccer game. Something felt off, so I recorded her conversation on my phone. She sent the audio file. Clear evidence of my mother deliberately scheduling a conflict with my wedding day, knowing exactly what she was doing. Her words were unambiguous. Yes, I know it's my son's wedding day. That's precisely why we need this game scheduled then. Trust me, this is important. When I played this recording for my father over the phone, his response was immediate. That's it. I've heard enough. I'm filing for divorce. Dad, wait, I said quickly. Is that really what you want? What I want, he replied heavily, is a time machine to go back and be at your wedding. Since that's not possible, I'll settle for holding your mother accountable for her choices. She didn't just lie to you, Phoenix. She lied to me for decades, manipulating our entire family structure. I can't stay married to someone capable of that level of deception. The situation had escalated beyond anything I'd anticipated. What began as personal disappointment about my parents missing my wedding had evolved into a full family implosion. My parents' marriage was on the brink of ending. Extended family members were taking sides. Tyler was questioning his entire childhood, and at the center of it all was my mother, still denying any deliberate wrongdoing despite mounting evidence to the contrary. Autumn found me that evening, staring blankly at the wall, overwhelmed by the cascade of revelations and consequences. This isn't what I wanted, I told her. I never intended to blow up my entire family. You didn't do this, she said firmly, taking my hands in hers. Your mother's actions over many years did this. All you did was get married and share your photos, like millions of people do every day. But if I hadn't posted those specific images, then your mother would have continued manipulating everyone without consequence. Autumn interrupted. Phoenix, this isn't your responsibility to fix. Some things need to break before they can heal properly. I knew she was right, but the weight of it all still pressed heavily on me. Generations of family dysfunction had culminated in this moment of reckoning, and somehow I'd become the catalyst. What happened next would determine whether our family shattered completely or found a way to rebuild on more honest terms. After a week of chaos, I decided it was time to take control of the situation rather than continuing to react to each new development. The constant calls, messages, and escalating family drama were consuming our lives and overshadowing what should have been a joyful time for Autumn and me as newlyweds. I need to address this head-on, I told Autumn over breakfast. Bring everyone together and lay everything out in the open. No more separate conversations where different versions of the truth can exist. She studied me carefully. Are you sure that's what you want? It could get very ugly. It's already ugly, I replied. At least this way, everyone will be responding to the same information at the same time. With Autumn's support, I arranged a family meeting at a neutral location, a private room at a local restaurant. I invited my parents, requesting they come separately, Tyler, and a few key extended family members who had been drawn into the situation. I specifically included Aunt Carol, whose perspective on my mother's long-standing patterns would be valuable, and my cousin Grace, whose recording provided undeniable evidence. I arrived early to set up the room, placing a laptop, speakers, and a small projector on the table. Autumn came with me for moral support but agreed to wait in the restaurant's main dining area. This is for your family to work through, she said. I'm here if you need me, but my presence might make your mother even more defensive. My father arrived first, looking haggard but determined. I'm proud of you for doing this, he said, embracing me briefly. It's long overdue. Tyler came next, then Aunt Carol and Grace. My mother was last, entering the room with the air of someone attending an ambush rather than a family meeting. She took a seat as far from my father as possible. Once everyone was settled, I stood at the head of the table. For the first time in my life, I felt completely in command of a family gathering. Thank you all for coming, I began. I've asked you here because what started as a personal disappointment, my parents missing my wedding, has spiraled into something much larger that's affecting all of us. Before anyone makes permanent decisions about relationships or takes further actions, I think we need to establish the facts and understand the patterns that brought us here. I connected my laptop to the projector and displayed a timeline I'd created, beginning with my earliest memories of important events my parents had missed in favor of Tyler's activities. Beside each entry, I'd included any available evidence, photographs, emails, calendar invitations. This isn't about blaming Tyler, I said, noticing my brother's discomfort. He was a child following the structure our parents created. This is about understanding a family dynamic that's been in place for decades. I moved chronologically through the evidence, including video clips from the family recordings where my mother could be clearly heard arranging conflicts with my events. I played Grace's audio recording from the baby shower. I showed screenshots of messages from Tyler's teammates confirming the exhibition game had no significance. The pattern is consistent, I concluded. Mom systematically arranged for Tyler's activities to take priority over mine, often creating conflicts deliberately to ensure my events would be missed or minimized. My mother, who had been shifting uncomfortably throughout my presentation, finally erupted. "This is absurd. You're twisting normal parenting decisions into some kind of conspiracy against you. Tyler needed our support for his athletic development. You were always more independent." "Mom," I said calmly, "I have literal recordings of you arranging conflicts. There's no room for interpretation here." "Those are taken out of context," she insisted. Tyler surprised me by speaking up. "Mom, stop. I've talked to my teammates. I know the exhibition game was meaningless. You told me it was crucial for my college prospects, but there weren't even any scouts there." My mother turned to him, betrayal in her eyes. "I was trying to help your career, Tyler. Everything I've done has been for this family." "No," my father interjected firmly. "Everything you've done has been to maintain control over this family. You decided Phoenix didn't need attention and Tyler did, and you manipulated all of us to maintain that narrative for 33 years. The conversation continued intensely for nearly an hour. My mother cycled through denials, then minimizations, then attempts to justify her actions. When those strategies failed against the weight of evidence, she broke down in tears. "Fine. Is that what you want to hear? Yes, I arranged some conflicts, but only because Tyler truly needed the support more. Phoenix was always going to be fine on his own. He had his intelligence, his focus. Tyler needed us physically present to succeed. That wasn't your decision to make," I said quietly. "You don't get to decide which child deserves to have parents present for life's important moments." "I was trying to be efficient with our family resources," she insisted. "Time, attention, support, these are finite. I was allocating them where they seemed most needed. And in this calculation," Aunt Carol said, speaking for the first time, "you never considered that Phoenix might need his parents at his high school graduation, his college acceptance celebration, his wedding?" My mother looked away. "He had other people. He always had friends, mentors, eventually Autumn and her family. Tyler only had us. That's because you deliberately isolated him to maintain his dependence," my father said, his voice laced with a new understanding. "You made sure you were his only source of support while encouraging Phoenix to look elsewhere." The raw truth of this observation hung in the air. My mother had no response. After another lengthy silence, I spoke again. "I didn't call this meeting to punish anyone or to force apologies. I called it because I'm establishing boundaries going forward. I'm married now, building my own family with Autumn. I need to decide what role each of you will play in our lives, especially since Autumn and I are expecting a child." The announcement slipped out before I'd planned to share it. Autumn and I had confirmed the pregnancy just before our wedding, but had kept it private, intending to announce it after returning from our honeymoon. The timing wasn't how I'd envisioned sharing the news, but it served to underscore the stakes of this family reckoning. My father's face lit up briefly before sobering again as he processed the implications. Tyler looked genuinely happy for me. My mother's expression was unreadable. "Congratulations," Aunt Carol said warmly. "That's wonderful news." "Thank you," I replied. "And it's why this matters so much. I won't allow the same patterns to continue into the next generation. I won't have my child wondering why certain family members miss their important moments or feeling less valued than their cousins." I laid out my terms clearly. Anyone who wanted a relationship with me, Autumn, and our child would need to respect specific boundaries. No more manipulative scheduling, no more comparative treatment between family members, and most importantly, acknowledgement of past patterns rather than denial. "I'm particularly concerned about your behavior, Mom," I said directly. "You've shown no real recognition that your actions were harmful, despite overwhelming evidence. Until that changes, I don't see how we can have a healthy relationship. My mother's face crumpled. For the first time, she seemed to grasp the seriousness of the situation. You'd keep my grandchild from me? I'd protect my child from manipulation and conditional love, I corrected. The choice is yours whether to be part of their life by accepting these boundaries. My father nodded approvingly. I think Phoenix's terms are more than reasonable. I'll be adhering to them myself. Tyler looked thoughtful. I'm still processing everything, but I want to be a good uncle. I'm in. The meeting concluded without neat resolutions, but with clear understanding of where everyone stood. My mother remained the most resistant, unable or unwilling to fully acknowledge her responsibility. My father confirmed his intention to proceed with divorce. Tyler seemed genuinely committed to building a healthier relationship with me going forward. As people began to leave, my father pulled me aside. I meant what I said earlier. I'm proud of you, Phoenix. What you did today took tremendous courage. I learned something important recently, I told him. From Autumn and her family. Love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every day in how you treat people. I'm choosing to break this cycle, even if it's painful in the short term. He nodded, eyes glistening. I hope I can be part of that new beginning. I hope so too, Dad. As the last family members departed, Autumn joined me in the now empty meeting room. How did it go? She asked, taking my hand. About as well as could be expected, I replied. Nothing's resolved completely, but at least everyone's working with the same set of facts now. And your mother? I sighed, still resistant. But she knows what needs to happen if she wants to be in our lives. The ball is in her court now. Autumn rested her head on my shoulder. I'm so proud of you for taking control of this situation. That couldn't have been easy. It wasn't, I admitted. But for the first time in my life, I feel like I've truly stood up for myself. And more importantly, for our future, for our child. She placed my hand on her still flat stomach. This little one is lucky to have you, as their father. I'm going to be present for every moment, I promised. Every milestone, every achievement, every ordinary Tuesday. They'll never question whether they matter. As we left the restaurant together, I felt a profound shift in my perspective. The pain of my parents missing my wedding hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into something constructive, the catalyst for breaking generational patterns that might otherwise have continued unchallenged. For the first time, I wasn't hoping for change from others. I was creating it myself. 6 months after our confrontation, spring brought new beginnings in more ways than one. Autumn's pregnancy was progressing beautifully, with a little girl due in early summer. We'd transformed our spare room into a nursery, painted pale yellow with woodland creatures dancing across one wall, Autumn's artistic touch making the space magical. In those months, our families had undergone significant transformations as well. My father had followed through with the divorce proceedings, moving permanently into an apartment closer to our home. Without my mother's influence, he'd become increasingly present in our lives, helping with weekend renovation projects and regularly checking in about the pregnancy. Tyler had surprised me with his commitment to rebuilding our relationship. He'd started therapy to work through his role in our family dynamics, and the realization that he'd been manipulated as much as I had been. We were slowly developing the brotherly bond that had been artificially suppressed throughout our childhood. My mother remained the most resistant to change. After the family meeting, she'd cycled through various strategies, from tearful pleas to angry accusations to attempts at minimizing her actions. When those approaches failed to sway anyone, she'd retreated into isolation, communicating only through occasional texts that fluctuated between self-pity and superficial inquiries about the pregnancy. As my boundaries held firm, a subtle shift began. Her messages became less manipulative and more reflective. 2 months after our confrontation, she asked if she could meet with me one-on-one. Over coffee at a neutral cafe, she admitted for the first time that she recognized her behavior patterns. I had a difficult relationship with my own mother, she explained, not as an excuse but as context. She always favored my sister Carol. I think I unconsciously recreated that dynamic with you and Tyler, but with me in control this time. She paused, struggling visibly. I'm working with a therapist now. She's helping me understand why I felt compelled to manage everyone's relationships this way. It wasn't a complete transformation, but it was a beginning. I maintained my boundaries while acknowledging her efforts. I appreciate your willingness to look at this honestly. That's the first step toward being part of our lives going forward. Our relationship remained tentative, with carefully managed interactions and constant vigilance against slipping back into old patterns. But the effort seemed genuine on both sides. As Autumn's due date approached, I had an idea that could potentially provide healing for everyone involved. After discussing it thoroughly with her, we decided to host a vow renewal ceremony at our home, timed to coincide with our first anniversary in September. It's not about replacing our original wedding, I explained when Autumn questioned whether this might erase the importance of what had happened. It's about offering a second chance, to ourselves and to my family, to experience a celebration of our commitment with everyone present this time. She considered this thoughtfully before agreeing. As long as we're doing it for the right reasons, not to paper over what happened, but to create a new memory alongside the original one. I sent personal invitations to each family member, including my mother. Her response came quickly, a tearful phone call accepting with gratitude and asking what she could do to help. I gave her a small, contained role in the preparations, a test she seemed to understand the significance of. The day of the vow renewal arrived warm and golden, much like our wedding day a year earlier. Our daughter Eleanor was 3 months old by then, a peaceful baby with Autumn's eyes, and everyone said, my contemplative expression. She wore a tiny dress that complemented her mother's simple renewal gown. We held the ceremony in our backyard, transformed with flowers and twinkling lights into an intimate garden setting. Unlike our wedding with its 150 guests, we invited only immediate family and closest friends, perhaps 30 people altogether. My father arrived early, eager to help with final arrangements. The joy on his face as he cradled his granddaughter reflected the healing that had begun. Tyler came next, bringing his new girlfriend Claire, whom he'd met through his therapy support group. When my mother arrived, there was a palpable tension that softened as she respectfully followed the boundaries we'd established. She didn't try to take over, didn't create drama, and most importantly, showed genuine happiness for our celebration without making it about herself. The ceremony itself was simple but meaningful. Autumn and I recommitted to our vows with Eleanor sleeping peacefully in her carrier nearby. This time, when I looked out at our small gathering, I saw my complete family present, not without complications, but present nonetheless. My father stood as my best man, a role he'd missed the first time. During the reception that followed, he gave the toast he'd never had the chance to deliver. To Phoenix and Autumn, he said, glass raised, for showing us all what real commitment looks like, not just to each other, but to creating a family defined by respect, honesty, and genuine love. You've taught this old man that it's never too late to learn how to love better. Later, as guests mingled in the warm evening, my mother approached me tentatively. Thank you for including me today, she said, her voice uncharacteristically humble. I know I didn't deserve this second chance. It's not about deserving, I replied. It's about choosing a different path forward. I've been thinking about what you said at our family meeting, she continued, about love being a choice you make every day in how you treat people. I'm trying to make better choices now. I've noticed, I acknowledged, and I appreciate the effort. She glanced toward Autumn, who was showing Eleanor to Tyler and Claire. She's a remarkable woman. You chose well. Yes, I agreed. And she chose me too, which is something I never take for granted. My mother nodded, understanding the subtle reference to my years of feeling unchoices in my own family. I hope someday Eleanor will know a very different grandmother than the mother you grew up with. That's entirely up to you, I said honestly. The past can't be changed, but the future is unwritten. The renewal ceremony became a turning point in our family's healing process. My father and I developed the close relationship we should have had all along. He became a devoted grandfather, stopping by regularly with children's books and tiny sports equipment for when she's ready. Tyler and I built a genuine brotherhood based on mutual respect rather than competition. He made a point of being present for Eleanor's baby milestones, taking ridiculous numbers of photos, and proudly declaring himself her favorite uncle, despite being her only uncle. My mother's transformation was the most gradual, but perhaps the most profound. She continued therapy, gradually developing self-awareness about her controlling tendencies. While our relationship would never be uncomplicated, we established a new foundation based on honesty and clear boundaries. She proved her commitment by respecting our parenting decisions and showing up consistently for Eleanor without attempting to dominate or manipulate. The winter holidays that year brought another test as we navigated our first Christmas as new parents with our reconfigured family structure. Rather than attempting to recreate past traditions, we established new ones in our home, inviting each family member to contribute something meaningful to the celebration. On Christmas Eve, as Eleanor slept upstairs and our family gathered in the living room illuminated only by the tree lights, I found myself overwhelmed with gratitude for the painful journey that had led us here. The absence of my parents at my wedding, a wound that had seemed unbearable at the time, had ultimately forced the necessary breakdown of toxic patterns that might otherwise have continued indefinitely. "I want to share something," I said, drawing everyone's attention. A year and a half ago, I stood alone at the altar on my wedding day, feeling abandoned by my family. That moment of pain could have defined me, made me bitter or closed off. Instead, it became the catalyst for all of us to confront truths we'd been avoiding for decades. I looked around at each face, my father, Tyler, even my mother, seeing the recognition in their eyes. None of this has been easy. But when I look at my daughter sleeping upstairs, I know every difficult conversation, every painful realization, every tear shed was worth it. Because she'll grow up in a family that's broken and healed, rather than one that's broken and pretending not to be. My father raised his glass. To honest healing, to second chances, my mother added softly. To family, Tyler concluded, the real kind. As we moved into the new year, I reflected often on the life lesson embedded in our family's transformation. Sometimes the most painful betrayals lead to the most necessary growth. True family isn't defined by obligation or blood, but by respect, honesty, and the daily choice to love actively through our actions. The breaking of what was allowed for the building of something stronger, more authentic, and ultimately more loving than what had existed before. Eleanor would grow up surrounded by imperfect people who had faced their flaws and chosen a better path forward. And in that truth lay the most meaningful legacy I could offer her: the courage to demand authenticity in her relationships, and the wisdom to know that healing often begins at the moment we think everything is falling apart. Have you ever had to establish boundaries with family members to protect yourself or someone you love? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my journey. I hope it brings some comfort if you're going through something similar, reminding you that sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most beautiful beginnings.